Hello, good morning, and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and this is the 14th of July, 2024. And it is here in New Jersey, it's another hot, humid day. Good morning, Alex. Thank you for getting up. I was thinking actually about headaches, and of course I've got a little teeny one right between the eyes this morning. But I think Advil will take it out. So that's the good news. Good morning. It's another hot, humid day, and we're actually in Jersey. We're certainly, and maybe in the Northeast, we're certainly in for 3 days in a row. I think by Tuesday and Wednesday we're talking 95 and 96 degrees Fahrenheit. Which for people who are on the centigrade scale, that's it's not quite. It's in the 40s. It's like high 30s to 40s. Good morning, Sam. So it's been hot, and honestly, I am not. There's some people who absolutely thrive in hot weather. I'm not necessarily one of them. So trying to do the best that I can with it, but. And I've got this, I think I've mentioned this before, I've got poison ivy on the back of my left leg, and it's really, morning at the gym, hey, okay. Hopefully you can hear me, hopefully I'm not, hopefully I'm not speaking too softly for you if you're trying to do that and work out at the same time. I have, it's the, oh my God, we are wearing winter coats here in the UK, it's so cold here. Another reason that I wish I was where you were, because this is what I mean. I love UK. There's two reasons right there why I would love to move to the UK. One is the fact that it's chilly there, like even in the summer all the time. And two, you don't have poison ivy. It's not a thing over there. It's not a thing. And for me, I'm like, I've got this. This is the second time this summer I've gotten it because it's getting to be so pervasive around here. And I'm very allergic to it. I'm like, two reasons of like the 3,520 that I have that I'd rather not be living in the USA. Interestingly, that came up for me. That is weirdly connected in some indirect way to what I was going to talk about today. So it's funny that we're talking about that. I had. Kind of the messages I've been getting recently. Okay, I want to talk about a couple of things that have happened. Particularly, there is a astrological configuration that is very much that is front and center right now because it's happening right now, and we've got this kind of 2-week period of tension where we've got so it's Mars and Uranus are conjunct. Okay, at 26 degrees of Taurus. And Algol, yes, that's where I was going. And Algol, which is in the constellation of Perseus and is actually the head of Medusa. Later it was referred to Algol. I was watching Steve Judd's analysis of that. Yeah, fire, yeah. He was analyzing it, and of course Algol is from the, it's more of like an Arabic type of term that actually had I think it's meant to mean, it's like Al Ghul. It's meant to mean like the head of the devil, roughly, is roughly how that translates. And so, and so I suppose, depending on how you view Medusa, people might take that differently. But one thing that does seem to have to do with this particular configuration where you have Mars, which is very much the martial planet, the one, hence the term, right? Military, like very... it's more of an aggressive energy. It's the energy we associate, like you were saying, with fire. And you have it with Algol, which is this Medusa energy, and then which can also bring violence. Okay, and then you also have Uranus, which is unpredictability. Now, the influence of these three together can really go in a couple of different directions. On the positive side, this can absolutely, it may come in and destroy and break somebody out of something, a pattern or a habit or a situation that they've been hanging on to, that they just need to let go of. And I was watching another astrologer the other day who was saying, that whatever this energy is, it's never going to take away the thing that you absolutely need. It's not going to absolutely break you and take away your means of of everything. It's going to take away something that you may think that you need, but you don't. It's that kind of a thing. So there's a liberation that comes with it. It is real, true Tower energy. And, you know, and again, it depends on how you look at that. I think the one astrologer was trying to give the example of like a car. Somebody during this energy, let's just say their car breaks down. Well, if they were somebody who had some money in the bank and was planning to buy a new car anyway, it's kind of like, yep, it's time, do it now. And so they're like, okay, well, I guess it's just time to buy a new car. If a person doesn't have money and that was their only mode of transport to get to work, then that becomes a much more dire situation. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't have transport. I don't have money to get new transport. You know, there's two different ways to look at that kind of a thing. That was the example that she had given. And but there's definitely one of the things that's come up quite regularly is with regard to the presidential election in the USA is how where Algol appears in the charts of the candidates and maybe of certain prominent people. And certainly Algol has a place that is very high in both Donald Trump's chart and in Joe Biden's chart, where both of them, let's just say that the summary of that is that both of them need to be careful during this period of time, at least Wednesday. Now, it was interesting. I called a friend last night, or rather she had left me a message, and so I was, you know how you WhatsApp each other and you kind of leave a voice message and somebody leaves a voice message back. And I had been talking to her about recent messages from Azrael, because she had brought up the election and the stuff that was going on around the election. And as I've mentioned, and I mentioned it here before, what I have seen, and I feel like, okay, given what happened yesterday, I feel like, okay, I need to talk a little bit about what Azrael says to me, because I do the channeling sessions, and I'm behind on posting a lot of stuff, so apologies to people. Normally I post these morning coffees the same day. I've been like 2 and 3 days behind because I have to switch accounts to do it, and so, I don't know, I just... Some days I get caught up in doing other stuff, and then I go, oops, I didn't upload. I download it from Instagram, then I got to upload it to there. And similarly, I have to go through the Azrael material because I always add title screens. I look at it, and if there's anything in there that I think, you know, people don't need to have, you know, 10 minutes of silence or whatever. Interesting, after seeing the news yesterday, you thought of my Azrael sessions. Yeah, and it's interesting because I was messaging my friend, and I said to her, you know, the recent thing that's come through, first of all, I keep seeing something about the full moon, okay, which is on the 21st. Like 7/21 is coming to my head, and yes, that's an American date, of course, but it's come very strongly into my head. Plus, Azrael specifically mentioned something about the moon, something about the full moon. And again, this is I communicate with him a couple of different ways. Sometimes it's just like my crown chakra will just start to tingle like crazy, and then it'll be like, okay, I feel like he has something he wants to say. And sometimes it will come into my head. Other times I will pull out, like I have Enochian cards that I work with, and sometimes I use those to communicate. And now I finally started. I said, you know, you're getting these messages. Why are you not writing them down? Like, I write down just about everything else. I tell people to write their dreams down, right? I'm like, why are you not writing these down? So I don't know if you can see behind me, sort of, there's on that cedar chest that I have my big book Enochian stuff that I've done in the past. And I'm like, well, this is hardly full. So let's start writing the Enochian messages down in there. So that at least I can keep track for myself. But occasionally Azrael will use a word with me that is Ananael. And that word means, if he uses that word with me, then I know it's something I'm not supposed to share with people. It basically means secret wisdom. And so when that word comes up, it's like, I'm telling you this, but I don't want you, keep it to yourself, at least for now. And there's been a couple of those Ananael moments with him. And usually those are around time or timing of something. So if he does give me an idea of timing on something, then usually that's when he's like, don't. But he did say something, the messages that I had gotten, okay, so if we just backtrack, I think even back, and I can't think if it was as far back as May, exactly when I started talking about this. I'd have to go through the live streams. But I was getting a ton of questions, even just for tarot. My own mom was asking me, she was like, she's like, well, who's going to win this election? Who's going to win this election, right? because there's a high stakes depending on which side you're on. Everybody, each person thinks the other opponent winning is high stakes, right? And of course, obviously, I have my opinions on that. Some people know what they are, but I don't want to get into that here because I don't want to derail anybody who has different politics. But it's very much, basically the message I got was neither. And I wasn't the only one who had gotten that message. I mean, I don't want to make it like, oh, this is something original to Brigid. Like, she's the only one who thought of this. No, I mean, like I said, the astrologers were seeing, like, Steve Judd especially, he's like, I just don't see either of them being president. It's just not in the chart. In their transits. It's not in there. I have another good friend, my friend JR, who is actually the one who introduced me to Rouhani. And I had asked, we had that conversation at one point, and even he got the thing. He's like, I'm not really seeing either one of these guys either. So there was, so I don't know. So that came up, but Azrael had said, and he was very adamant, like, no, it's not going to be either one of them. And so then the question becomes, because initially we all thought, well, that's silly. Obviously, we've had the primaries. This is how it works. This is going to be who the two are. What he said to me was, he said, no, Biden will drop out, basically. And that he had said, and that was, I remember him giving me that number 4 before, at the end of June. And it was 4 days before the debate, that really disastrous CNN debate that he had. And it said, you're going to see in 4 days how this starts. So that's when we started to see the people questioning whether Biden should be on the ballot. And Democratic convention's not till August. So there's still time for that to change. Now, right now, Biden's adamant that he's going to stay in, but there's a lot of people going, if he stays in, even with all of the past prognosticating about how, well, the incumbent has an advantage and stuff like that, I'm not sure we're in a time that applies. And even though, okay. So the age question is there, and that's kind of important to what I'm going to talk about. So then he talks about, so then I said, well, what about Trump? Because I know Trump, no matter what the situation is, he's not gonna not take the nomination. He's gonna go in the Republican convention. Is it like happening now? I feel like it's happening now or this week or something like that. Because I remember he was supposed to be sentenced on, what was it, on the 11th, and they postponed that because of the Supreme Court ruling. So, and I thought they said it was going to be like 4 days after, so I guess maybe tomorrow is the day. Interesting that they're having their convention right in the middle of Mars, Uranus, Algol. And I seem to recall, so okay, if I'm going to say one thing about what happened to Trump yesterday, it's that I wonder if this is going to make people in the RNC rethink what their stance is on guns. Now maybe, and I don't know, being that the shooter was killed, maybe they're going to pull the good guy and bad guy with the gun narrative in, I don't know. But I'm like, when you kind of shrug your shoulders, or when you have these people when these terrible school shootings, and you have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and coming in trying to say, or Alex Jones, like, oh, the whole thing was staged and made up. And I'm like, so what happens now that all, because they were basically saying, oh, we're going to give people freedom to carry their guns in to like the RNC. And I remember hearing something about that. I'm like, do you really think that's a good idea? I mean, just from a basic security standpoint, that just seems like a really poor idea. But it had been talked about and floated. And I'm like, and now somebody obviously got in with a gun, and look, and I mean, now Trump isn't dead, but I mean, he could have been. I mean, it was like, what, does this make you think any differently about carrying firearms in places like this, or allowing it? Even if you think you're the person who's not going to get shot? I mean, I don't know. I just don't know if this is going to make them think differently about it. While I'm not going to go as far as to say I'm anti-Second Amendment, I don't think anybody should have any kind of assault weapons. I think most people don't even need a freaking gun, okay? And I know that doesn't make me popular in my neighborhood where a lot of people here seem to have guns, but I'm like, I don't see the necessity of it. Because generally when you have a gun in the house, the only thing that ends up happening is that, if you have kids or whatever, somehow they manage to find the gun and get the lock off and shoot themselves or their friend in the face, And so it doesn't really it does very little good for protection. And if you have it locked up in a safe, it was like that Jim Jeffries sketch. He's like, then it's not protection, is it? If you're like, oh, just wait a minute, I've just got to get the combination, and once I do, you're in trouble, like, what are you going to do? Like, you can't react with it. You can't leave it in a place where people can get to it easily. But then if you lock it up, then if somebody breaks in, it's not really protection if you have to go and try to get it out of its protection place. It's just, yeah. Anyway, there's a whole, and I'm sure that that's controversial in and of itself, because there's a lot of people who think, and I know people who really like guns and are like, oh no, I like having my gun. Again, it all depends, but this is a situation where I feel like I don't see any reason why, and I don't even know what kind of a weapon it was, but I'm like, does this make you think twice about having guns in public places and political rallies like this? So, anyway. But the point being, what Azrael had actually said to me about Trump was he said, no, he's not going to be in the race because he's not going to survive. And I'm like, so I was like, are you suggesting like an assassination? And he's like, well, there'll be an attempt, but no, ultimately it'll be like natural causes. Like that seems to be the thing. But a comment was also made that I thought was really interesting about like an anger that had been invoked, and it wasn't clear to me exactly who was angry, whether it was gods who were angry, whether it was angels who were angry, whether it was some kind of intelligence or something beyond us that was angry. It's not clear to me who he's talking about, but somebody is angry at the idea. Because he has said to me, and he's actually said this in my channeling sessions, that there are no messiahs. So the fact that there is a narrative around Trump about him, and it is an evangelical narrative that he is somehow chosen by God, like almost like the second coming or something like that. Basically, the message I got was, yeah, anybody who espouses that narrative is not looked upon favorably by whatever these forces are. And that generally doesn't lead anywhere good. And from my perspective, I said, okay, if you're coming from a pagan perspective, then if you think about people who demonstrate hubris, who think they're as good as the gods or better than the gods, what happens to those people? And then if you think Old Testament God, you think of the word smite, right? I shall smite thee, And I actually kind of had that word in my head, and I was laughing. I said, it sounds like that whole biblical smiting thing. And basically I got, it is kind of like that. And I was like, oh, okay. So I don't know what that means, and it doesn't mean that But for some reason, there's somebody in that realm that's just not real excited about the whole messianic narrative here. I guess that's the best way to put it. I don't what he means by that. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's kind of like a slap or a warning at somebody. I don't know if he means. I don't know, but it might just be kind of like a wake up, like, hey. None of this second Messiah stuff. That's not. And Azrael has said in some of the sessions that I've posted that there are no messiahs. Don't be looking for messiahs. He has said that. So that aspect of things certainly does not sound like it is sitting well with them. What that ultimately means, that's just a conversation that I had, but I don't know what that means. So in what way they intend to kind of put the kibosh on that kind of narrative, I don't know. But the implication was more that if Trump was going to drop out, it was going to be because he was just going to pass away of natural causes, too much KFC or whatever. I mean, I don't know. It has nothing to do with anybody actually assassinating him. Seems to be the thing. But that was, so I don't know. And then it was like, just as I was saying, well, I don't know, because I heard the idea that there might be, Azrael had kind of said, like, that there might be somebody who was going to try to do this, and that was one of the dangers kind of this time period, this Algol, Mars, Uranus. And that is something that both candidates actually have to watch out for right in this period of time. He basically, it was just like, then I got a message. I was watching a live stream last night. I watch the Wings of Pegasus live stream. Usually it's Tuesdays and Saturday nights, so I always watch Phil Henley. And it was during that live stream. I mean, people donate during the live stream, and somebody had made a donation, and they said in the live stream, pray for President Trump, he was just shot. And Phil doesn't bring, like, that. One of the rules is we don't bring politics into that live stream. It's a music live stream. It has nothing to do with politics. So Phil was just like, yeah, he says, well, I don't talk politics. And he says, and I haven't heard that. And truthfully, I mean, yeah, it happened while the live stream was going on. And when I heard that, I immediately, like, while I was watching, was on my phone, like, trying to figure out, because first it was, he was shot and he was fine, he's shot and he's not fine, he's bleeding, he's not bleeding, he was okay, he was hit, he wasn't hit. I was like, there was all this different information coming in, and I'm like, okay, I need to wait until people have some facts here about what's going on. But it was weird, because then I got several messages from people who I had talked to about this, and they were like, yeah. And it's just weird, because okay, cumulatively, I'm thinking about the Azrael messages, and a lot of times they come through, and I just pass them on. I don't know what to make of them, because that logical, rational part of me wants to say, well, you know, some of it just sounds incredible to me, right? I just feel like some of it just sounds like, I'm like, okay. But also Azrael has said that there's a time shift. He said, so the direction that the world was moving before, because everyone's scared of Project 2025, they're all scared. He's like, yeah, it's not going to go that way. That's kind of the message that I've gotten, which should be encouraging, because I don't think anybody, certainly not anybody who watches me probably, is interested in any kind of plan that's going to curtail the rights of people, especially women. But I just feel like there's I don't know, it's going to be 2025 is going to be a very different time, and not in the way that people are currently worried about. So, but again, it just seems like that it's not going to be a Trump-Biden matchup, ultimately. It's going to be two different people. I did not see a female, so I don't know about Kamala Harris. But again, everything remains to be seen. I'm trying not to over-speculate. I'm just like, as the messages come through, I'm saying them, and I'm just kind of, I guess I'm kind of weirded out that, because I think a while back, you know, when I first got this message, I was like, there's no possible way it's not going to be Biden and Trump. And now there's a lot of stuff happening that's shifting, that's kind of making me go, okay, maybe it's not going to be Biden and Trump. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just watching these events unfold, and I'm comparing them to the messages that I've gotten. There are some other messages I've gotten that again, they're telling me something, but I also still am not entirely sure what it means, especially when they're talking about timing. Like, for instance, that 4 days before the debate, like, yeah, something's going to happen in 4 days on the 27th, and that's gonna start changing the landscape. So I don't know. I mean, it's just it's interesting, and even as somebody who does the channeling now and is trying to get more confident in their mediumistic abilities, I'm also like saying, like, wow, really? Like, it just still, I don't know. There's just still, I have this mental thing. But he did say, the thing he did say to me this morning, I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something to the effect that people are very hung up on the age window. And he said, like, their mind is like, basically he said the mind is going in circles around age. So what people are really focused on is how old these two guys are. And he's saying that's not going to be the point of it at all, ultimately. The age thing is not going to be, that's not going to be the determining factor in what happens here, which I think is interesting also. But people are very hung up on age. So I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, although it does bring to my mind when a lot of people talk about Biden's age, and yeah, I mean, there are some things that seem to show he's in cognitive decline, but Trump is also not young, and he also has signs of being in cognitive decline. So really, neither one of them are, like, you know, the freshest beer in the six pack right now. You know, I mean, they're just not. They just seem to be. I mean. They're not at the top of their game, either one of them. Okay, so let's just put it that way. So yeah, very interesting how this is all unfolding. So let's do some readings with that. Not necessarily about that. I just felt like I needed to kind of give an Azrael update on this one and what Azrael has been saying, because, like I said, some things he wants me to share, and other things are. Not IL, you know, don't speak about those. So, yeah. so what do we have here? I'm using the Crowley deck today. I felt like I looked at it and I said, yeah, that's the one I want to use today. And okay, so I've pulled 3 cards right off the bat. I have the Four of Swords, okay, which is the Truce card. So this is a card that has to do with taking a time out. It may have to do with physical recovery or recovery from illness. It can be whether that recovery is from stress and anxiety, or whether that recovery is from a physical illness. So there seems to be this idea of recovery. We have this, I guess because I'm going to be on YouTube, I have to cover this up a little bit. We have the Strength card. Okay, we have the Babylon card here, and that is card. So this is that reverse. I think I think it was one of my clients this past week about. We were talking about tarot decks and how they reverse, how Crowley reverses strength and justice. Because normally 11 is justice, like in the Rider-Waite deck. This is the card 11. Crowley puts them in a different order. So we have the Lust card there, which is also the same card that has to do with not only with strength, but with passion, with the idea of one's energy. I feel like I've said to multiple people recently about being a lion. Okay, that I feel like this is suggesting that there's been a sense of withdrawal lately. Okay, for people in situations like there's been a timeout, or a need to regroup, or to recover, or interestingly, when I think of the term truce here, I feel like it's like people kind of just, with things being very chaotic, just wanting to be in a place where things are, just quiet and peaceful. It's like, okay, I can take a step back from the noise and just kind of be in this quiet space, right? But this card suggests to me that there's a need to be intense, to be passionate, to tap into that power and that energy that we have, and it's not so much about trying to keep things the same. Okay, and. So I feel like kind of the piece of where we're at right now. In the Osho Zen deck, this is the card of postponement, okay? It's the idea that we're kind of hanging back, and I really feel like this fits in with the Mars, Uranus, Algol energy, because it's this idea that we are, we've all been just kind of trying to maintain the status quo, so to speak, or just trying to maintain what feels familiar or what feels comfortable, or, maybe, like I said, maybe we've been tired of things and we just want to take a time out. But the Lust card kind of says, no, this is the time to jump into action. This is the time to, and again, there's a lot around lion energy. I've also mentioned the Conditioning card, which is the Devil card in this deck, and that's the card of the lion among the sheep, and it's the idea that you're not a sheep, you're a lion. Okay, that's the idea there, and I feel almost like that's this is the message of this. I mean, this is supposed to be Babylon. Actually, this is the Babylon energy. Babylon energy too. We have to remember that is also an Enochian word, by the way, and the way it was translated by John Dee was that word meant wicked. But the way that Azrael told me, he's like, no, it doesn't have to do with wickedness. It has to do with dissolution. And I think I talked a couple days ago about the dreams I had of Kali and Shiva doing the destruction dance. Okay. So this, I feel like it's talking about, it's time to kind of get your courage and strength, because a certain situation is dissolving. Like whatever this truce is, it's dissolving. But what it's moving into, oh wow, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, right? And what we're moving into is the space of the Ten of Cups. So what is this? This is community, this is harmony, this is emotional satisfaction. I can tell you that I had pulled a few of the Osho Zen cards this morning, and I also got the Ten of Cups. It was showing all of this other stuff around it. And really what I feel like the message was kind of like, hey, you don't, move out of this wounded space into your power, because things are about to get really good. Things are about to shift in a way where there's more harmony, where there's more, where there's happiness, where there's wish fulfillment. This is oftentimes a card of family harmony as well. It's basically like a culmination, but it's a very satisfying and happy kind of a culmination, okay, with the Ten of Cups. So that's really interesting, that's what's coming up in the Crowley deck. So it's basic. I think so. It's basically, I think it's telling people like to be courageous. You know, be courageous. You don't need to retreat from what's going on here. You don't need to try to maintain the status quo. Whatever is changing for something that's going to be, you know, the phrase coming into my head is beyond your wildest dreams. So I don't know. Maybe that's an overstatement, but you know, there's something to that there, right? Let's see how it compares to the Osho Zen this morning. Let's see what we've got and what's come up. And yeah, it's interesting. Okay. Oh gosh, it came up again. Okay, so this may be a little bit more by way of explanation. So yeah, schizophrenia card comes up first. Two of Swords. So Two of Swords, what is that? That's that impasse, that indecision, that place between the head and the heart. Maybe it refers to what I was saying this morning about, yeah, I know I'm getting these messages and my mind wants to go, really? So, I don't know, maybe that's part of it. But I also think, I did see the Two of Swords yesterday with respect to this energy. Like, there's been an impasse that's going to be broken, okay? So we're talking about the impasse. And again, we're seeing this Ace of Pentacles energy internally. This energy of having, we're coming from a place where whatever's happening, even though this is a card of a new beginning, okay? Ace of Pentacles is a new beginning, new security, new new ways of being here. But this is also a card of maturity in this deck. So it is a new beginning, but it's not one that is uninformed. It's one that's coming from a place of, okay, you know, I've been through the thing, I've done the thing, and now I'm not coming at this from a place of total innocence. I'm coming at it from a place of where I can be secure in myself and secure in my knowledge and secure in, and this, like I said, this would be for anybody watching. This is not about me, but just there's this kind of that you can trust what your own experience tells you. I guess that's probably the best way to put it here. But the external feeling of which we're aware is this Five of Swords energy again. So Five of Swords, okay, we're showing the comparison again. Again, we may be... Okay, so in terms of the changes that are going on, I think there's an indecision here because we're comparing the old to the new. We don't really know what the new looks like, but we're comparing it to the old, and we're saying, okay, you know, yeah, but with the old, I had this, this, and this, or at least I had this, or at least I had that. So we end up postponing, right? We pull back. There's this new beautiful thing here, but we're only kind of looking at this kind of gray area here. And gray areas don't just necessarily mean that they're drab. Gray area can also mean that it's just not clear. You know, if you're talking about a gray area, we just don't know. You know, the gray area is where it's not, you know, it's cloudy. We're not seeing something clearly. But the clear thing is over here. In a way, this is almost similar to Four of Cups energy in that we're not looking necessarily in the right direction, or we're not necessarily looking at something in the right way when we see it like this. Okay? Now, Five of Swords also is limiting belief and limiting behavior. And a longing for something, or a longing for the past. Sometimes it's a card of jealousy in the traditional decks and things like that, you know, envying what somebody else has. But here it's a card of of comparison, of saying I'm inadequate compared to this person or this situation, or I'm powerless in this situation. And this is basically saying, well, no, you have this maturity, you have this experience, you have this inner voice that is telling you things. And our outcome is interesting because it's the Moon card. It's the past lives card. So now, when this card comes up in the Osho Zen readings, it has to do with, it's basically saying you're about to discover something that maybe, and this is interesting with all the people I have who've been doing Rahani lately and stuff too. It's like you're uncovering something that, that has been holding you back. You are uncovering that thing that doesn't that makes you want to stay in this kind of space. So, and it's a revelation that has to come at the right time, because if it comes at the wrong time, it could either be too traumatic, or it might not be understood. But it is that moon energy. So it's the idea that it's kind of like there's like a clarity coming in that's more felt internally and intuitively, maybe rather than seen. That has to do with the past or past situations. Whether, or as I've said, like concurrent, like, life situations. I mean, past, we always tend to think of it in terms of time, what came before and what comes after. But it's this way of thinking that's kind of out of line with where we are now and where things are now. So it's kind of like saying you want to get in line with what's going on now, not that way of thinking that's putting us to the way things were before. Like, we keep going back and assuming that the old narrative is the one. And that may be the way that we're looking at it. And if we think it's not if we think it looks scary or unknown or unpleasant or drab, or just we don't see what's there, we don't see the possibility, this is saying, but it is there. It is there. It's just the past, whether that be just your past experience, whether that be literally a past life experience, whether it be something ancestral, whether it be there's something there that is that's what's obscuring your vision. It's not that the thing ahead of you is bad. It's that your vision is kind of being obscured by maybe what has gone before, whether you're fully consciously aware of it or not. And again, that can leave us split. But we are definitely moving into a new space here. So this is very, very interesting. Let's see if there's just any. Okay. So we have the Queen of Clouds here, the morality card. So again, clouds, I mean, that's swords, that's mental energy. So this can be overthinking. It can be over perfectionism. I wanted this, but I wanted it this way. And also with the morality card, we may have these ideas about ethics, about right and wrong, about the way something should be or the way something should go. And I think because of the type of energy that we're dealing with here, things may not be happening in the way that we expect, or maybe in the way that we think is right according to what our own personal moral system is. But the morality of it is more that, I think it's more saying, when you're dealing in something that comes beyond our social conventions or our social structures, there's something that's beyond that. And I've said this over and over again, that isn't moral. When you're really talking about the fundamental forces of the universe, there's not a morality about them. They just are. And we try to apply a moral system to them. So that may also be saying that with some of the things that I'm seeing that seem confusing, or maybe even a little, they're like, don't apply the morals of your conventional time to whatever's going on. Like, there's whatever's going on beyond our understanding doesn't have anything to do with our system of right and wrong. I mean, there may well be a system of boundaries and right and wrong, but it may be part of a bigger picture that we're not seeing, I guess maybe is the best way to put it. So we shouldn't be stuck in the idea, in the script. I mean, morality to me is also about the script that we're in, about how it has to go. So, so I feel like there's some changes that are going on there. So anyway, I think that's all I've got for today. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I hope you have a great Sunday and a great week. And be careful with that energy, although this could be an energy that you could ride into something new. So that's the positive angle of it as well, that this particular energy right now could be something that gives you a breakthrough to where you've been trying to get to. So there's that too. I think that's the positive way to look at it. That said, it is a very intense energy, and like any intense energy, you want to be, thank you, this was helpful. Oh, good. I'm glad. Thank you. Hopefully this will, whatever we're moving into, like, lean into, ride it rather than get trampled by it, I mean, like, kind of ride into it and expect that there could be these kinds of explosions and things going on because of the type of energy that it is, but also recognize that there's the potential for really profound change here. So, on a personal and maybe even on a collective level. So thank you guys again. Have a great rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Take care.